In this video, I'm going to do a quick walkthrough of Nash Community College's MyLabsPlus page and show you how our homeworks and tests are going to work, and some of the different helps that MyLabsPlus offers as well. So obviously you're always going to start by signing in. My information is saved on the computer, so mine just automatically pre-fills. You're not going to see all these classes, obviously. I teach a lot of math classes, so all of mine come up. But you should see Math 272-OL02. That means online, Section 2, Spring 2018. And you're going to click on that so that you can see the assignments that are specifically assigned for this class. Usually, on the course homepage, that's the first thing that's going to pop up. In this blue box here, it says what to work on next. Your assignments that are currently available for you to work on should pop up there, as well as right in front of them what the due date are. You can also see kind of a little calendar up here where you see a piece of paper. If you hover over that or you put your mouse over that, that says when the assignment became available. And then where you see the little clock, it'll say when the assignment is due. So homework number 1 became available on our first day of class, and it was due on the 12th, Friday the 12th. And then homework number 2, I made available this morning. I also made homework number 3 available, but that's not due for a while. But homework number 2 is now available. You could also scroll over to the next week, and you can see that homework number 2 is due on Tuesday the 16th. So that can give you a look ahead as to when things are going to be made available, if I have assigned them, and when they're going to be due. Also, this box is helpful as well. Whatever is on top in that list is the next assignment that's due, and the date in front is the due date. If for some reason you think that there is an assignment that's due and it's not showing up here, you can always click on homework over here on the side, and it will pop up there as well. So you'll see that homework number 1, it has already been due. It says past due over here under gradebook score. These are my scores. So obviously I did not work on homework number 1. It has the due date. Homework number 2. So homework number 1 is not a link. I can't open it back up from here. But homework number 2 is actually a link. I could also click on it from here, and it says the due date. Homework number 3 is also a link, and it has the due date. So you could click on your homework from here as well. You're also going to be taking your tests on MyLabsPlus. Those also, when they become available, will pop up in that what to work on next box. But again, if for some reason you think there should be a test available to work on and you don't see it there, you could always click on quizzes and tests. Now, be careful with this because there's a lot of stuff posted at the bottom and they just say sample tests and quizzes. Those are not the things that I have assigned. If you look up above that, it says your instructor has not created any quizzes or tests for you. So up here at the top, there would be a separate box of things that I have created and assigned for you to do. So there are none right now. Once we get closer to test number 1 on chapter 6, you will have a test there to work on. And I'll talk more about tests in just a minute. But there are sample tests down here. You could try them if you want to. I will give you a practice kind of review quiz type thing before the test to give you a good idea of what's going to be on our test. These tests are created by the publisher, so they might contain some things that I would not put on our test. They might contain some things that I didn't really emphasize and you don't remember really seeing that much of in your homework, or we skipped section 1 and we're also going to skip section 9, so you might see some questions in there from those sections that you don't recognize. So just be careful with those. You certainly can use them to practice, but they might not be completely accurate, and they might not be a good representation of what our test is going to look like. But as the test time gets closer, I will always have a review assignment so that you have a good idea of what you should be studying for your test and what our test is going to look like. If you do want to practice, I suggest going to the study plan. This is not part of your grade. This is not part of your homework. This is also a good idea if you realize that there are some things maybe from Calculus 1 that you are not remembering. So you can go to all chapters here. So say after you completed that first homework, you realize that you do not remember how to do derivatives. And you really need to brush up on your derivatives or your antiderivatives. So you can see here in chapter 3 of our book talks about derivatives. So I can click on that, and it's going to give me all the different sections. But all those different sections also open up further, and you can practice questions based on topics. So if you just want to practice some problems based on the rules of differentiation, and this is going to be like the power rule and sines and cosines. So it tells you review the rules of differentiation, and there's some problems there you can practice. Find the derivatives of power and constant functions. Find the derivative of constant multiples of functions. So it breaks it down by topic. So if you know there are certain things that you want to practice, as long as you know what chapter or what section it's in, you could even just browse through those chapters and sections and see if you can find it here and do some practice. So if you knew, I'm going to go back to all chapters. Since homework number 1 included some U substitution on an integration by substitution, and you are realizing that you don't really remember antiderivatives all that well, there are some things you can do with antiderivatives here. So actually, I'm going to go back because antiderivatives are first introduced at the very end of chapter 4. If you look down, 4.9 is where antiderivatives are first introduced. So just finding general antiderivatives and indefinite integrals, there's a bunch of practice problems. And then it goes into chapter 5. Some of chapter 5 is really theoretical, where it's doing finding area by breaking it up into rectangles and things like that. Right now we're just using the rules of antidifferentiation, like power rule, sines and cosines, things like that, logs and exponentials. So the study plan, if you just want some extra practice problems, the study plan is a good place to go. Just make sure you click on all chapters. They're going to make a recommendation of where they want you to start, and they're going to have you start right at the beginning. So you might not need to do that. They're going to make you go through every single chapter, every single section to get where you want to go. I would just jump right to where you think you need some help in. You can monitor your progress in the course from the grade book. The default is only to show you what you've done in the past month. As we get farther along in the course, if you want to see all your grades, you just click on that drop-down arrow, and you can say entire course to date, and it will show you all of your grades for the whole semester in MyLabsPlus. Now, I transfer these grades over to Moodle because we're going to have a lot of things to do that are outside of MyLabsPlus, so that you can see one kind of comprehensive overall grade for the entire course. I do all of that in Moodle. So the grades that you make on your homeworks and your tests in MyLabsPlus, I will be transferring them over to Moodle and combining them with your discussion board grades, your project grades, things like that. That way you can look at everything all together. Chapter contents. This is an e-textbook. So if you don't have a physical copy of the textbook, or you just don't have it on hand, and you want to read a specific section of the textbook or look up a specific formula, you can look something up. So we just finished section 6.2. So if you wanted to, so right here at the top, view the interactive ebook. It does require a specific plugin. So if you don't have that plugin, you might get a message saying you have to install some sort of plugin first. And I don't know if I have the plugin either. And I don't think I do. And that's why it's asking me to do this. So I'm going to close this. But you can look at the different chapter contents there. Let's see. The multimedia library. This one is also really helpful because it lists some additional resources that the publisher offers, and it lists them by chapter and by section. So Chapter 6, Section 2, we just got done having a homework assignment on. Again, you can look at the multimedia textbook section. That's just like an online ebook. They have some animations that go along with that. So some different problems where they've done some animations with area between two curves. They have some PowerPoint notes. So if you've taken classes before where the instructor has provided you with the PowerPoint notes for the different sections of the textbook, this is most likely where they got them from. So if you want, you could download the PowerPoint notes for all of the sections that we're going to cover and have this nice comprehensive set of notes. I do want to warn you, though, don't rely 100% on those notes. One of the main goals of taking notes is for you to process the information. So there's a great benefit for you watching demonstrations and writing that material down in your own handwriting, in your own words. So that also is really beneficial. So I still want you to watch the videos and take notes from the videos, but these PowerPoint notes might also be beneficial for you. Videos are usually videos of people just working out various problems. So I clicked on videos and I hit find now, and they've got some different videos of, they've got one video that's just an introduction of areas between curves. So that looks like it's more of a lecture type video. It's only 2.5 minutes long. And then these other 4 videos are example videos. So you can watch 4 different examples being solved by somebody. Interactive figures, these are things that you can kind of play with and see what happens, like as you change a function, what's going to happen to the area as you change the left bound and the right bound, what's going to happen. So it gives you an opportunity to kind of alter the problem and change the parameters of the problem and maybe get a little bit better of an understanding. So these things are available for every single section, every single chapter of the book. So next we're going to be going into volume by slicing and volume by shells, and we've got all of those same things for that as well. So the multimedia library has tons and tons of resources that you can use. We're not going to be using, and my sidebar might look a little bit different than yours because this is obviously an instructor sidebar. Some of these might be hidden to you. But I want to go back to homework and look specifically at some things that you have available when you go into a homework assignment. So I'm going to go in, let me go back, hold on, before we do that, because I'm going to end with homework. When you go to your grade book, nope, I can't do that. I'll come back to it. We're going to do homework first. So I'm going to click on a homework assignment, and homework number 2 covers section 6.3 to 6.4. It's only got 10 problems, but some of these problems have multiple parts to them. So don't let that fool you that, this is only going to take me a few minutes. I can wait till Tuesday night at 10 to start it. Some of these problems are going to take a while. So just to forewarn you. So when we start with question number 1, it says use the disk method to find the volume of the solid generated by revolving the region bounded by y equals 3x, y equals 0, and x equals 4 about the x-axis. They've already given you a picture for this one. Now, in these 2 sections, 6.3 and 6.4, when you watch the lecture video, one of the most important things, and I also talked about it in section 6.2, is to draw a picture of the region first. The upper bound and the lower bound function are going to be really important. Or if we're working it sideways, the right bound, left bound are going to be really important. So always draw a picture of your region if it's not already given to you. The first thing they want you to do is set up the integral that gives the volume of the solid using the disk method. Now this one specifically, because they're asking you to set up the integral, you have to use the method that they're saying. There are other problems in this homework where all they want's the answer. All they want's the volume. They might say use the dis method, but they're not verifying what your integral looks like. So you really have the choice of what method you use. Only if they're actually checking what your integral looks like do you have to make sure that you're using the method that they told you to. Now, I would never sit here and just plug stuff in and see if it's right or wrong. I would always work this problem out on paper first. There's several reasons for that. Number one, if you have this all worked out on paper and you don't get it correct, you can go back to your paper and look through your problem and see where you went wrong. Usually if you get it incorrect, so I'm going to choose one of these. Now A says we're going to integrate with respect to X. B says we're going to integrate with respect to Y. So I'm just going to randomly pick this and try to get it wrong just to show you what happens. Usually if you get it wrong, they'll try to give you a hint. So you might not be able to see what I just did, but I just typed in the word pi and it automatically changed to the Greek letter pi. That's an option. Also down here though, there is a pi button. You could just use the pi button. Now you might not have read this material yet or watched the lecture video. I haven't posted it yet. I'm about to. So you might not know you need to use a pi. That's okay. This is more just a walkthrough of MyLabsPlus. And I'm just trying to get this wrong, just to show you what would happen. So that's my guess, and I'm going to check my answer. And it says, sorry, it's not correct. Make sure you read what is in this box because it usually gives you a pretty good idea of how you can fix it. Or it gives you some really good notes that you can write down, helping you distinguish for when you should be integrating with respect to X or when you should be integrating with respect to Y. The formula for the disk method is here. That is a good thing to have in your notes. You can check to make sure that you're using that formula. It says the choice you selected and your answers for the limits of integration are correct. So it's individually checking those boxes. So if you don't read that, you might change some of those things, not knowing that you had part of it correct. However, your answer for the integrand is incorrect. So just my pi 3x is not right. The fact that I chose to integrate with respect to x is correct and 0 to 4 is correct. It's just my pi 3x that's wrong. To use the disk method, revolve the region R bounded by the curve y equals f of x, the x-axis, the lines x equals a and x equals b about the x-axis. So that's just a generic description. That's not specific to this problem. Then the volume of the resulting solid of revolution is given by the formula below. So there's the formula. It's pi times f of x squared. So I forgot to square my function because I don't have a square in my integrand. So I'm guessing that's what I did wrong. I should have squared my 3x function. And then it says similarly, this is what you should do if you were revolving around the y-axis. I was like, okay. So when you close this box, the problem is still there and you've got an opportunity to fix it. And it's going to let you keep trying. So I'm going to get this wrong again on purpose. If I square that, I'm going to say, okay, well, that's going to change my 3, 2, and 9 because 3 squared is 9. And I'm going to check my answer. The choice you selected and your answers for your limits are correct. However, your integrand is incorrect. So I've still got it wrong. So again, if you've got this down on paper, you can look and see what you did, especially if it's more than just a piece of it that's wrong. I'm going to get this wrong again a third time because the third time is when something different is going to happen. I'm going to change it to a Y, which is really, really wrong. Notice that this box down here says final check. So when I do my final check, it says, sorry, your answer is not correct. The correct answers would have been limits of 0 and 4. Well, it says choose option A, limits of 0 and 4, and your integrand should be pi times 3x squared. So I should have squared my 3x like I said earlier. So, okay, that's what I should have done. You have the option to do this again. I'm still in problem number 1. You have the option to do this again. You have not completed this question. Are you sure you want to leave this question? Yes, right now I have it wrong. I want to redo this. Oh, it says we haven't finished the second part. So it wants you to actually finish out the entire problem first. The volume of the solid generated is blank cubic units. Well, they've already told me what the integral should look like. So we can write that down on the paper, 0 to 4 pi times 3x squared, and see if we can at least work out the integral now that we know what it's supposed to look like. So let's see here. I believe 9x squared is going to turn into 3x cubed. From 0 to 4 is going to be 4 cubed. It's going to be 64 times 3, 192 pi. So that part I got right, but I'm only getting half credit for this problem. It automatically goes to problem 2, but if you go back, so you can go back using the arrows, or you can also do this drop down arrow and look at all of the problems. So you'll see I don't have the first part right, but I have the second part right. Down here where we were clicking on check your answer, it now says similar question. You can keep doing similar questions over and over and over again until you have it right. It's just going to change some of the pieces of the problem. So instead of y equals 3x, it now says y equals 4x. Instead of going out to x equals 4, it now just goes to x equals 2. It's still a triangle. Notice it's just changed a little bit. So we want to try this again. For the most part, it's a very, very similar problem. But it just doesn't want, it already gave us the answer. So it doesn't want us to just type in the answer it already gave us. It's going to change it a little. So it's always going to give us 3 tries at one problem. And then if we don't get it correct, it's going to tell us what the answer was. And we can always go back and keep trying it until we get it correct. So this should be 0 to 2. And I'm not going to do, yeah, I'll do pi. Yep. And then remember, we need to just square that function. So if I square 4x, I'll get 16x squared. And down here at the bottom, we've got some different buttons we can use to help us with the math operations. So there is a little exponent button there that I can press in order to add my squared. Now that's not the exact same format they told me the answer was earlier, but that should still be an acceptable format because I just did an extra algebra step. Instead of keeping my 4x in parentheses with the square outside, I went ahead and squared it. Uh-oh. I did 0 to 2 and I squared my 4x. Maybe they don't want me to square it. And this is the one of the things that I don't necessarily like about MyLabsPlus is it can be really picky. And I'm going to show you one of the helps that's available. If you really think that you're doing this right, and it's just MyLabsPlus that's being really picky about the answer, I'll show you a trick on how you can check that. So they just want us to do 4x and then square it. And let's see if that's acceptable to them. Oh, I see the problem. Look at this. They switched. I didn't even look at it. They switched the dy and the dx on us. I picked the dy, and I should have picked the dx. So I'm not even going to erase that stuff. It won't make a difference because I didn't choose that as my answer. I bet that's what was wrong. So I'm still going to leave it as 16x squared. I'm going to choose the pi button down here because that one works as well. And I just want to make sure that it's going to accept this as well as the unsquared. If we would have left it as parentheses 4x quantity squared. So check. Good. They accept this as well. So I got it right on the second try. So they're fine with that. And then the second part is, okay, go ahead and evaluate that definite integral and tell me what the volume is. So we'll do the power rule on the x squared, and we'll get 16/3 x cubed. So we're going to cube the 2 and get 8. And then we need to multiply that by 16/3, which is 128 pi over 3, I believe. And there's a lot of different ways you can write this. I'm going to go ahead and start my fraction at the beginning. So I've got 128 pi all over 3. Check. Good. So the second time through the problem, I got it right. If you look back, it completely forgets that you got this only half correct the first time, and it replaces it with a green check, which means you've got full credit for it now. If it's only half credit, it will put like a red X / a green check, which means you've got it partially right. And it just automatically jumps to problem 2. If you don't want to go to problem 2, you can jump around to any problem that you want here. And again, you can go back to any problem that you want. I could even go back to question number 1 if I want. Even though I've got it all right, I still see that similar exercise button down here. I can keep working that over and over and over again until I completely understand it. All right, so up here in the top right corner, there's a button that says question help. And there are some options here, if you're really stuck, that could help you as well. The first one is help me solve this. That one is going to walk you through this exact problem step by step. One of the drawbacks with the help me solve this the button is that once you close the window that the help me solve this pops up in, it's going to change your problem. So only use help me solve this as an absolute last resort because you have no clue how to do this. Or if you're on your third attempt and you still have no clue what to do. So help me solve this. It's going to go through step by step. It's going to give it to you in 4 or 5 parts. And just continue. It's going to ask you some questions along the way. So it's kind of interactive. So it's saying if you use this formula and you plug your information into it, what is it going to look like? And it wants you to choose, so 0 to 2, pi 4x dx. I think it was going to be that one. Yep. Now find the antiderivative. So it's literally doing this one piece at a time. So first we've got to square 4x, 16x squared. Even if at this point right here, all you needed help with was the setup, if you close this, our problem's going to change. We've already got credit for it, so it's not going to change it on us. But if you had not completed this problem yet, it would change it to a completely new problem. A better option, if you're not sure, is to do view an example. The view an example is just going to work out a very similar problem. Notice this similar problem, all they changed was instead of going to x equals 2, it goes to x equals 3. Everything else is exactly the same. So you can kind of look and see what they're doing with this really similar problem and then use that to help you with your problem. So again, it's interactive, usually. They've set up the integral. They have gone ahead and squared their 4x, and then they found their antiderivative, and they plugged in the 3 and the 0, and they've subtracted, and they found the volume. And then when you close this, that's not the same problem as yours. So you can't just plug in 144 pi for your answers, because remember, this one had different bounds. So when you close this, your problem will stay exactly the same, but you can at least use the same idea and follow the same steps to do your problem. Connect to a tutor. I believe this one will connect you to Smart Thinking. They don't always have live tutors available, but you might be able to schedule an appointment with a tutor. And they might have some other options on their website, some activities or some videos, or some maybe some notes or some different things. I've never actually used that one. That one's a fairly new option in this drop-down list. Ask My Instructor will send me an email, and it will also send me a screenshot of this problem. It will say, I've got an email from Emmanuel, MyLabsPlus problem 6.3.17. If you see up here, it says 6.3.17 from homework number 2. And it will show me exactly what problem you're working on. And it will let you include a message. So you can say, I don't even know where to start with this problem. And then I can kind of give you some hints from there on what exactly you need to do. Or you can say, I got the setup right, but for some reason, I'm not getting my volume correct. So that's not an instant messenger. That's going to be an email. So if it's late at night on the night that it's due, that might not be your best option because you're not necessarily going to get immediate feedback from that. And then you're welcome to print all of these homework problems as well if you like to keep a copy of them, so you can print these. This will only print, I think, one problem, or it might ask you, I'm going to click it, print this question only or print the entire homework assignment. It does print very often just one problem per page. So if you were to print out this homework assignment, it would probably print 10 pages because it's 10 problems long. So I told you I would always work these problems out on paper so that if you get it wrong the first time, you can go back into your work and see what you did wrong and possibly fix it. The other reason I would work these out on paper is because you're going to see these exact same problems on your test. So you might want to take notes next to these problems as to what you're doing and why you're doing it. So this was the disk method. We're using the dx because when we revolve around the x-axis, anytime we revolve around the x-axis, you're going to find out we will 99% of the time integrate with respect to x. We do not choose dy with the disk method when we're going around the x-axis. So that's something I address in my lecture video. You would probably also have the formula. So if we hit the help me solve it, or if we got it wrong the first time, we would have that formula there that we could jot down. We would also have the picture, so that would help us as well. So you want to keep a record of all these homework problems because you could reference back to them when it's test time, because you might see something really, really similar on your test, and you can get a quick refresher of how you did it before, and it will make your test a whole lot easier. Now that I've actually done one of these, I want to show you something. You don't necessarily need to hit the save button. MyLabsPlus automatically saves, but you could just close out that screen, and I'm going to hit OK. But now when I go to my gradebook, after a homework assignment has passed, you can still go in and review it. So even though homework assignment number 1 was due on Friday night at midnight, and it's now past the due date, you should be able to see the grade for homework number 1 in here, and you should see a little review option right here. So you can still go into homework number 1 and you can still work those problems. Now, it's not going to change your grade on this assignment, but if you didn't do very well, continue to review homework. So it gives you a warning. It says any work you do here will not change your score. So yes, we understand that the homework has already been due. But to continue on in chapter 6, we really need to understand this. So if there's anything you didn't understand in homework number 1, you can still go back to it and hit try again or similar exercise and keep working on those problems, especially before test time. You can go back into your homework assignments from the grade book and hit review and try some more of those problems. Now, clicking on them from the gradebook will not change your score, so be really careful about clicking review on a homework that is currently open. So if it's a homework that's currently open for you to work on, make sure you click on it from homework or you click on it from the home screen. Because if it's currently open, you actually want the problems that you do to count for your grade. And I would keep all of that work you're doing in your homework nice and organized in a notebook. My suggestion is a 3-ring binder where you can put dividers in and label it and find it very easily when it comes time to take your test.